luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Across the world, social media is aggravating the drug menace. Find out why Africa is one of the worst affected continents. Picturesque Umhlanga Rocks coastline in South Africa is harboring a deadly unseen enemy that's threatening lives and health. And South Africa's musical siblings are making a mark on the global stage. This week on World of Africa at these times.
This week on Take It Out, our focus is on CES 2024, the world's biggest technology show. We show you interesting devices, futuristic gadgets, and cutting-edge consumer electronics that dominated the tech extravaganza this year. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
As democracy strengthens across the world, elections and their unique cast of leaders, influencers, pollsters, and most of all voters dominate the political space. We bring you a special program that offers insights and reports on the colorful, contentious, and occasionally quirky panorama of elections. Something is always happening somewhere. This is a new special about leaders, their promises, voters, and their demands. A show that tells you all about the rules of the race, cutting through the rhetoric to bring you the reality, cutting through the populism to bring out the policy at play. The show that keeps you updated on the twists and turns, the hits and the misses. Watch Race to Power on WION World is One.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this co-production of WION and Voice of America. I'm coming to you live from New York, and I'm Susan Tehrani. Let's go straight to our first story, where Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday launched impeachment proceedings against President Biden's top immigration official. The move comes as a bipartisan group of senators negotiate a massive deal that would rework immigration laws in exchange for votes authorizing more aid to Ukraine and Israel. Voice of America's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more. Take a look.
With an impeachment inquiry into U.S. President Joe Biden ongoing, House Republicans this week launched another impeachment inquiry into Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
Secretary Mayorkas has repeatedly lied to the American people and to the United States Congress. Our investigation uncovered more than 100 instances where Secretary Mayorkas misled the public.
The rare effort to impeach an administration official drew condemnation from Democratic lawmakers who said Mayorkas cannot face removal from office for carrying out policies.
This is not a legitimate impeachment. Republicans want to throw political red meat to their base and keep that campaign cash coming. They know their already razor-thin majority is slipping away,
Earlier this week, Mayorkas defended his actions, saying the situation at the U.S. border with Mexico is part of an unprecedented level of migration throughout the Western Hemisphere.
We now need Congress to do their part and act. Our immigration system is outdated and broken and has been in need of reform for literally decades.
A bipartisan group of Senate lawmakers have been negotiating for weeks to pass changes to the immigration system as part of the White House's national security supplemental request that includes $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. Senate Republicans say they will not authorize more aid until the United States can ensure its border security.
Why is it that they cannot figure out how to secure the southern border? Now, Secretary Mayorkas will stand in front of you and tell you that the border is secure. We know it's not.
Well, top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell has called the border situation a crisis. He has also urged lawmakers to keep working to address international security threats.
Our nation is facing the most serious array of national security challenges since the fall of the Soviet Union, and the Senate's responsibility to address them remains unfilled.
According to the Pentagon, the U.S. sent the final approved aid payment to Ukraine at the end of December. Nearly $14 billion in aid to Israel and funding to combat Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific is also on hold until an immigration deal can be reached.
Passing the supplemental will be America's signal to the world that we will hold the line.
Schumer is unlikely to take up a trial of Mayorkas in the Democratic majority Senate if the Republican majority House passes articles of impeachment. Catherine Gibson, VOA News.
Voice of America's Jessica Stone is joining us with additional reporting. She's live with us from the White House in Washington, D.C. Jessica, great to see you. We're still talking about another threat of a U.S. government shutdown on the horizon. What are lawmakers doing at this point to avoid something like that?
Well, this time we have a staggered set of deadlines. We have 12 total bills of spending that need to be passed. We have one deadline in just 7 days, another deadline at the beginning of February. And really, this is a tick-tock, a calendar game, right? Because there just simply isn't enough time to pass all of these bills. This is a process that normally takes months. We now have days. Over the weekend, though, we did get a development, which is that the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, made a deal with Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Senate, to agree to top-line spending numbers. So they have done that, but he is already under fire by the Republicans in his caucus, particularly the conservative Republicans, who say we can't cut that kind of deal. We need to argue the spending bill by bill, cost by cost. And this, of course, remember, this is how the last Speaker of the House lost his job. So that's what's at stake here for Mike Johnson. They still have a lot of details to work out on spending in order to do that. And again, we are just 7 days away from today from the first set of deadlines in which 4 of those spending bills have to be passed.
Yeah, a lot to get done. So what did lawmakers get done this week?
Well, they had a lot of conversations about this spending situation, but also we saw that House Republicans moved to hold President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, in contempt of Congress. That carries a 1-year prison sentence, and all of this goes back to the impeachment inquiry into his father, the President, Joe Biden. He took an interesting turn in this story because he made a surprise appearance in front of the very same committee that is trying to hold him in contempt. The issue is basically they want him to testify privately. He wants to testify publicly about allegations that he is influenced at peddling, using the Biden family name to get favors from foreign corporations. The White House says that President Joe Biden had no knowledge of any of Hunter's business dealings, but this has been going on for months now, and it may well be that he goes on to face these contempt charges. Just yesterday, he had other charges connected to tax filings filed in a California court. So he is definitely facing a number of charges connecting to how he handles finances. But in the meantime, this inquiry into his father on Capitol Hill is moving forward.
Yeah, absolute mayhem on Capitol Hill when he arrived and left abruptly. Jessica, please do stay with us as we talk about our second story regarding Taiwan and China. A possible Chinese attempt to take over self-governing Taiwan has been a threat to the island for decades. It's definitely a topic among candidates in Taiwan's upcoming presidential election. But for some island residents, the threat of a Chinese attack has become more real than ever, and they are taking action. VOA's Elizabeth Lee has the details.
At this airsoft gun club, while these students are learning to handle a gun that shoots plastic pellets, Tony Liu has shot with real bullets and experienced war.
I bought a plane ticket and went to Ukraine. I didn't tell anyone.
These relics, the reminders of the 3 months Liu spent fighting in Ukraine.
Since the Russia-Ukraine war, there have been more and more of these civil defense classes.
Some people in Taiwan worry if Russia can attack Ukraine, then China could attack Taiwan. Some people take action by learning how to shoot. Others take an interest in using ham radios to communicate. In this classroom at Kuma Academy, students learn how to recognize disinformation, how to survive if basic infrastructure is disrupted, and how to save lives with first aid skills. Most of the students have been women.
It's almost like a team of moms. Their motivation to come to class is they want to know in extraordinary situations, including war, what can they do? How can they protect their family?
The history between Taiwan and China stems from the Chinese Civil War that ended more than 70 years ago. The communists won, and the ruling nationalist government retreated to Taiwan. Beijing considers Taiwan a part of China, even though Taiwan now has its own democratic government. China attacking the island has always been a possibility, but after so many years, apathy has set in for some people, according to Kuma Academy co-founder Marco Ho.
Often there's a thinking something that did not happen yesterday also did not happen today. Then tomorrow, it also won't happen. This thinking is very dangerous.
Many here say the China threat has changed ever since Chinese leader Xi Jinping came to power.
He wants to be the one to set the international standards.
Another reason to take note of the China threat?
I think the biggest reason is technology. There's confusion in all the information. Because information is very confusing, you don't know if it's going to be a military assault or information warfare.
Liu doubts that the people of Taiwan can protect the island.
I'm not very optimistic. People need to strengthen their ability to defend Taiwan. Life has been too peaceful.
Observers say whether China attacks does not depend on who is elected Taiwan's next president. Instead of trying to calculate the risk of war, Ho says, Taiwan's residents need to face the reality that war is possible and should prepare for it. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Taipei, Taiwan.
Okay, VOA's Jessica Stone is still live with us from the White House. Jessica, Washington has warned Beijing against meddling in Taiwan's elections. What can you tell us about that?
Well, you heard Elizabeth Lee talk about noticing and learning about disinformation, and that is obviously also going on in this election, something that the U.S. is warning Beijing about, but something that Beijing is also warning the U.S. about in return. A State Department spokesperson telling VOA on Monday that the U.S. opposes any, quote, outside interference or malign influence. And this warning comes as China really steps up its air and sea patrols around Taiwan. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry has cited numerous balloon crossings from west to east, from east to west, across the Taiwanese military installations on the island. Washington says the Taiwan Strait is an international waterway and it should stay that way. It should not succumb to additional patrols where Washington says Chinese patrols are increasing instability for global trade. And Taiwan's defense ministry calls those balloon incidents, quote, psychological warfare. So President Xi Jinping has said that in a New Year's address that the, quote, reunification of the motherland is inevitable. So we had this increase in rhetoric, increase in military activity from China going into Saturday's elections. Beijing does not rule out a takeover of the self-ruled island by force. And meantime, China also again warning Washington not to interfere both in the information space, but also obviously with additional military sales to Taiwan. Susan?
Yeah, and what are Washington's concerns about the impact of Taiwan's upcoming elections on U.S.-China relations?
Yeah, we've really seen this issue come up and be a focal point in the relationship between the U.S. and China, really a focal irritant, because we have seen increased U.S. military sales to Taiwan. And every single time that happens, we have a big reaction from Beijing. And so the sovereignty of Taiwan, a big issue in the relationship. Beijing repeatedly accusing Washington of supporting Taiwan's independence. The stated position by the U.S. government is not a position in favor or against independence, but simply that the U.S. is committed to giving Taiwan what it needs to provide for its own self-defense. Remember, just this week, we did have the latest in the rounds of U.S. and Chinese defense talks, a result of that November meeting between Xi Jinping and President Biden in San Francisco on the sidelines of the APEC conference. And so that is moving forward. But afterwards, we heard the Chinese Defense Ministry say that the U.S. should stop arming Taiwan, and they consistently maintain that position. The key problem here in the U.S.-China relationship is that analysts are concerned that the increased need of Taiwan to self-defend is going to start a cycle of the U.S. further arming Taiwan and incurring more of Beijing's ire. Beijing is then going to increase patrols, increase provocative actions, and we'll get into this slow bringing the U.S. and China at loggerheads militarily. So that's the key concern in the relationship vis-a-vis Taiwan. Susan?
Great. Thank you so much for all of that. VOA's Jessica Stone joining us live from the White House. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
You bet.
The U.S. Defense Department has revealed that the United States is facing challenges in tracking over $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. According to Pentagon's watchdog, there is a 59% shortfall in the monitoring of $1.7 billion worth of defense gear. The report claims the shortfall is due to misuse or theft. Earlier, it was alleged that a significant portion of the military aid to Ukraine has been diverted. The Biden administration has repeatedly said monitoring measures are in place. The audit watchdog has long battled the corruption issue in Ukraine. However, the Defense Department's press secretary claims there is no credible evidence of illicit diversion of the military aid. He added that Ukrainians are using the weapons effectively. The findings come at a crucial time for President Biden, who's facing challenges in Congress from Republicans to sign off on additional military and financial aid to Ukraine. All right, moving on to the 2024 presidential election. Iowa is going to be on Monday as they caucus. Former President Donald Trump has a dominant lead going into those Iowa caucuses. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, while way behind from her former boss, Donald Trump, is leading Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. According to a poll by Suffolk University, 54% of caucus voters say that Trump is their first choice. 20% support Haley's presidential bid. 13% backed Ron DeSantis, while Vivek Ramaswamy was backed by 6% of respondents. Around 500 voters took part in that poll. Last month, nearly every poll in the state found Ron DeSantis above or even ahead Nikki Haley. Iowa caucuses are an important indicator of a candidate's likely success. The fifth Republican debate on Thursday saw Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley battling, for second place. Frontrunner Donald Trump once again refused to attend the debate, instead taking part in a town hall with questions from the audience on Fox News. But back to the two runner-ups, both DeSantis and Haley accused each other of lying during that debate, tearing into each other's record and character. DeSantis claimed Haley is in the race at the bidding of her donors, while at one point the former UN ambassador said to the Florida governor that he's just plainly desperate. So the disruption in the Red Sea and the disruption in trade in particular could have an immense impact on you, the consumer. Trade disruption could affect profit margins of companies, and they could pass on that increase in cost to, well, you and I, the consumer. So what's likely to get more expensive for us? Well, our next report tells you more.
The recent spike in Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea poses significant challenges for global trade and has immediate repercussions for consumers and businesses alike. The strategic location of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a crucial waterway between Europe and Asia connecting to the Suez Canal, makes it a hotspot for Houthi attacks, disrupting an estimated 12 to 15% of global trade. As a result of these attacks, major international shipping companies have deemed the security situation in the Red Sea too dangerous, leading to pauses in their transits through the waterway. The decision is expected to drive up prices for consumers in the coming weeks, impacting a wide range of products from Scottish whiskey to clothing from various countries that transit through the Suez Canal. The Red Sea disruption has broader implications beyond delayed shipments and increased costs. The region is a vital thoroughfare for energy flow, with tankers carrying significant percentages of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas transiting the strait each year. As Iran, a supporter of the Houthis, deploys warships to the region, there are concerns about potential escalation, especially if Iran decides to exert pressure on the Strait of Hormuz, another key transit route. Such actions could further disrupt global supply chains and lead to increased shipping costs and insurance premiums. In conclusion, the Red Sea crisis is already affecting consumers through potential price hikes, and the broader impact on global trade and energy flow could have lasting economic consequences. The situation underscores the need for a pre-evaluation of military strategies and procurement to address low-cost threats like drones and missiles, which are proving effective in the current maritime conflict. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, let's wrap up in the world of sports, where the first Grand Slam that is of the year, the Australian Open, is just around the corner. Novak Djokovic and Aryna Sabalenka will commence their title defenses on Sunday in the first day of play in the expanded 15-day main draw at the Australian Open. World number 2 Sabalenka's 6-0 and 6-3. But Sabalenka has put that loss in her rearview mirror and cannot wait to launch her Melbourne Park title defense.
I mean, she's moving really well. She's hungry. She kind of like have nothing to lose. And she knows that crowd going to support her. I think that's what makes her really difficult opponent. Also soaring really well. And I think that Australia Open final will definitely help me with all those emotions I went through in that final.
Sabalenka's main rival, Iga Swiatek, will begin the Australian Open with a first-round match against former champion Sofia Kenin. The duo had played against each other only once in the 2020 French Open final. The Pole had defeated Kenin 6-4, 6-1.
Yeah, we played. My first Grand Slam final was against Sofia. Now we were playing in the first round, so it's pretty weird. But that's how our life's journeys kind of went apart. But on the other hand, I know she's been playing some solid tennis lately. I saw how she was playing in Abu Dhabi, so it's not going to be easy. And I'll just get prepared the same way as usual. The coach is we're gonna talk about the tactics because we haven't played in a while, so I have to kind of see how she's playing right now.
Men's world number 3, Daniil Medvedev, is all set to overturn the disappointing Australian Open result last year. The 27-year-old decided to shun the warm-up tournament and head straight to Melbourne Park.
I don't think I've ever played an Australian Open, which is the first slam of the year, without a warm-up tournament. And usually the first match can be a little bit not easy sometimes of the season. I remember last year, the first match I played against Sonego, actually, he crammed after one set, which was a bit surprising. So there is a risk always, but as I say, otherwise I would be 35 years old and I would be like, I actually never spend a New Year at home, never do this and that, so I decided that is a year to try.
Thank you so much for staying with us and watching this news broadcast. I'm Susan Tehrani in New York, signing off. Have a lovely weekend, everyone, and I'll see you Monday.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Across the world, social media is aggravating the drug menace. Find out why Africa is one of the worst affected continents. Picturesque Umhlanga Rocks coastline in South Africa is harboring a deadly unseen enemy that's threatening lives and health. And South Africa's musical siblings are making a mark on the global stage. This week on World of Africa at these times.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.